All right. For today's presentation, we're going to be covering the different types of interviews and how to prepare for them. We'll also go over practicing for interviews and cover sample questions and even answer the question, what should I wear for my interview? And we'll close off the section with final tips and thoughts. So what are interviews? Interviews are essentially a structured conversation where one participant asks questions and the other provides answers. Essentially, you have two individuals, an interviewer and interviewee. Do note that not all interviews are created equally, though. There are different types of interviews. You have phone interviews, which essentially are conducted over the phone. Video interviews use video conference calls like Zoom, Microsoft, Google. Traditional interviews are just that, traditional in nature, where you have an interviewer and interviewee. And panel interviews are kind of like traditional interviews, usually held in person, but can be held virtually as well. Essentially, you have multiple individuals that are participating in an interview. You could have human resources, you can have the recruiting department, but essentially you might even have the department and other chair members that are part of the organization. Preparing for interviews should be done regardless of the type of interview. Most importantly, you'll need to start off with understanding what type of interview will be conducted and then plan accordingly. For example, if you are going to be doing a phone interview, ensuring that you are in a place that is distraction free and you can take the phone call. Video interviews will take a similar approach, but to add the concept of making sure that you have good lighting. Panel interviews, maybe bring a couple few extra resumes for the individuals that might be participating in interviews. But again, understanding what type of interview is key to prepare for the proper interview. Next thing that you want to do is research the company and their website. Ensure that you understand their mission, their values, maybe even who's part of the team. Next thing that you want to do is review the job description and advertisement. This is key because you also want to make sure that you tie back your responses to the job description and the position that you're applying to make sure that you're the best candidate for that role. You can additionally practice with mock interviews. If you don't know what mock interviews are, you can contact the Career Resource Center, and we'll be more than happy to talk a little bit more about mock interviews. Essentially, they're practice interviews. We hold them like as if they were a real interview. You can dress up, we dress up, and we have a series of questions that we'll go through and cover those questions through a lot of time. Additionally, you can do self-recording. So if you don't feel comfortable doing mock interviews with our center or with the Career Resource Center, you can do self-recording through Zoom, Google, whatever you have available, but essentially record yourself practicing those questions and go back and watch them and make adjustments as needed or practice just the sample responses that you create. Now, when you do create your sample responses, definitely write it out, type it out, whatever you feel comfortable with it. You can read it, but when you are giving these responses, you want to make sure that you don't sound robotic when giving these responses, right? Like if they ask you, tell me a little bit more about yourself. You don't want to be, I am a Clovis Community College student. Make it sound more of a conversation. Don't be afraid to kind of give your personality as it relates to this response or just any responses in general. Essentially, interviews are going to be a conversation. Employers want to get to know you a little bit better, and then you should do the same as well. You want to get to know the company a little bit better to ensure that it's a right fit mutually. Behavioral-based questions are common interview tactics that companies use, organizations utilize. Essentially, they're questions based on how you acted in a specific situation. They're meant to gauge how you react to stress, what your skill levels are, and how you conduct yourself in a professional environment. The main goal with these types of questions are interviewers, they want to get to know you, and two, they want to see how you would respond if you were put in a similar situation with their organization. So they want to look at your past experience. So the way you should respond to these types of questions is by using the STAR method. The STAR method is a structured manner of responding to behavioral-based interview questions based off of specific situations, tasks, action, and results you're describing. So situation, you want to describe the situation that you were in or task that you needed to accomplish. The task, what were the goals that you're working towards? Action, what did you do to address the situation? Results, describe the outcome of your actions. So, think back to your toolbox or create a couple of stories that you can put in your toolbox that do just this. A lot of behavioral based questions can start off with tell me about a time or give me an example when you. So if you are asked these types of questions, that gives you an idea like, okay, I need to go in my toolbox and respond to this question by laying down the foundation in the STAR method, right? Describe the situation. What was the task? What did you do in terms of action? And what was the results? Generally with the results, it does want to tie back to like a happy ending or close the loop. You don't want to have a result where nothing was accomplished or the situation wasn't resolved. So make sure that your result does do that in terms of closing out the story and it's essentially a happy ending. So a great response for this in terms of um, a STAR method response could be the following. If you get asked a question, tell me about a time when you dealt with an upset customer, you could give them a response that maybe you worked in fast food and you're dealing with the upset customer because the food is taking too long, right? So you're laying down the foundation in terms of what the situation is. There's an upset customer because the food is taking so long. The action could be you reassure the customer and maybe even throw in a free item or a discount or a coupon, whatever it may be, but you do some type of action which hopefully helps resolve that situation where the customer leaves happy and wanting to come back. So again, lay down the foundation in terms of what the situation it was and what the task is or what the task was. Also do the next step, which is what you did to help resolve that situation. And then the last thing, the results, what was the results of your actions? Did it close the loop? In this case, the customer was really excited that they were able to get some free items or even a coupon. So they assured that they would give us a 5-star rating, whatever it may be. But again, just close the loop, and then to make sure that you have just multiple stories ready to go for different types of questions, because this is just an example, but again, there are different types of behavioral-based interview questions that might be thrown your way. Here are additional sample questions that might be thrown at you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Essentially, they don't want to know your hobbies, more or less focused on your education and past experience. You can also focus on any future goals that tie back into this role and how it would benefit you if you were to get this position. A great example of this type of response would be, I'm a current Clovis Community College student majoring in psychology. My past experience is in mainly volunteering, where I volunteered at the Habitat for Humanity, something along the lines. But again, you want to talk a little bit more about your education, your goals, to your past experience. And essentially, with your past experience, you want to tie that back into the position that you're applying to. Always, when you're responding to your questions, tie back your responses to the job, to the company as best as you can. Next question, why do you want to work with XYZ? I'll tell you now how to respond to this question. I need a job, I need money. Research the company, look over the company mission and the team, and make sure you tie back to your response. Like you genuinely want to work with this company because of their mission, or because their team environment, or because let's say you were a customer at that establishment and you love the way that you were treated as a customer, so you want to do the same thing for others. What is your biggest weakness? Definitely a common question that is asked throughout multiple interviews, whether it be professional or in the educational setting. So we are all working on improving ourselves. Think of something you're working on as well as how you're working on improving that particular skill. You don't want to respond to this answer by saying, I don't have any weaknesses. Everyone has weaknesses. I have weaknesses. Your professors, faculty, anyone that you come in contact with, there's definitely something that they're working on and improving. So essentially, like let's say you're horrible with organization skills, but you're implementing a planner or maybe even reminders on your phone, and that's really kind of helping keeping you on track. Again, you want to kind of give one thing that you're working on, and then two, how you're working on, and also if you can throw in how that's what you're implementing has helped you out so far. Next sample question, tell me about a time you had a conflict with a peer and how you handled the situation. This is kind of similar to that behavioral based question that we just went over in the previous slide in terms of tell me about a time when you dealt with an upset customer. This could be similar in the sense where it's a behavioral based question, so use the STAR method to responses. Have a story in your toolbox, and then again, remember the STAR approach. If you have not had to deal with this type of situation, a hypothetical response would be fine. And then usually at the end of their interviews, they can close off the interview with, do you have any questions for us? Try to have some type of questions. Don't respond back like, oh, no, I'm okay. I don't have any type of questions for you guys. Mainly ask questions that you feel are important to you. What would you like to know? Maybe there wasn't something clear about the job description. Maybe this could be hours, or two, how is the training like, or what's the support like in this type of role? Have some type of question that you feel is important to you. And if you'd like to, you can bring a sheet of paper or a notebook with those types of questions ready to go should this question be asked of you. Attire, what should you wear? I usually recommend business casual. it's always appropriate. Definitely kind of go to. This can include slack, chinos, button-down polo shirts, a blouse, a skirt. Questions on what to wear, you can always contact our Career Resource Center. We'll be more than happy to talk to you through this a little bit more, or even kind of go through other ideas. We have brochures and flyers that cover this types of question. The main thing that you do want to do with your attire is just ensure your items are clean. They're scent free, they're ironed or pressed. Avoid too much perfume or cologne, and groom yourself, right? If you can, avoid smoking before the interview as well. All in all, attire, just make sure that you're well put together. Maybe if you have gone there before and you've seen what maybe the manager has worn, try to mimic a similar type of style with your type of attire for that day of the interview. Final thoughts. The big thing that I want to kind of just hit on is tie your responses back to the position that you're applying to. So if you are applying to, let's say, a tutor position at a school, tie back your responses in terms of you have worked with children, or you do have some education or tutoring experience as much as you can when they ask you certain questions. If you arrive on time, you are late. So try to arrive, I would say maybe 20 minutes to the establishment, but don't walk into the office or to the building until 5 to 10 minutes before your interview. This kind of just gives you a great time frame to kind of just plan ahead. Should you, I don't know, have a flat tire or be involved in an accident, just plan accordingly. I'm a firm believer of anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So just do your best to kind of plan accordingly. Just as you're being interviewed, you're also interviewing the company. Remember earlier I said you're interviewing them as well. You want to make sure it's a good fit. If you're interviewing them, you just need a job, but it's not a good fit, chances are you're probably going to be looking for another job in about a week. So make sure that you are interviewing them as well. Make sure it's a good fit in terms of the team dynamic. You vibe with the organization. You believe in their mission value, because essentially you want to make sure that you get it right the first time. I do know that sometimes it doesn't always happen. So do understand that, hey, if it's not working out, make sure that you use your best judgment or find a mentor that can kind of help you out with that process as well. If you have questions on mentors and how to find one, our Career Resource Center is always available to kind of help answer general questions related to career advice or just advice in general as well. Map your route according to the day and the time you're scheduled for an interview. So let's say your interview is scheduled out for 2 Mondays from now at 2 p.m. If you can, try to go on Monday at 2 p.m. or maybe even beforehand to just see what the traffic flow is like. That way you can plan accordingly in terms of like, this is how long it's going to take me to get from my place to the interview. Wear something that gives you confidence. I know we talked about attire. One thing that I didn't talk about is that confidence factor. You want to make sure that what you're wearing gives you that swag, gives you the confidence to be able to give your best response, and essentially, I guess you would just want to hold your head high, right? Wear something that does that for you. It's going to go a long way, and you're going to feel a lot more comfortable answering those questions. If you are nervous, take a deep breath. You got this. If you need a pet talk, our Career Resource Center is always available. Or maybe listen to a song. Listen to something that you feel gets you going and gives you that confidence again. You just want to make sure that you're confident, you're ready to go. Practicing is going to help you do this. Talking to someone is going to help you do this. Wearing something that does that give you confidence is going to just all in all be in your favor. If you have any questions or want to learn more about mock interviews or just need some help with interview practice, you can contact the Career Resource Center. Our Career Resource Center is located in AC2. Email is careerresourcecenter@cloviscollege.edu, or feel free to give us a call at 559-325-5398.